What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. I'm your host, Elijah, as you can tell by my YouTube banner. And today we're going to be talking about something I've taken the most seriously so far, and that's knife crime.
How many brothers fell victim to the street? Rest in peace, none. There's a heaven for you.
Now, it's a running joke going on with Americans who poke fun at British people because of their lack of guns, pun intended. But the catalyst for me talking about knife crime has come from the recent stabbings in Southport, which have claimed the lives of 3 people as of right now, 3 children, while several more have been injured.
It's an act of violence that shattered the peace of the summer holidays in a seaside town, with the facts still emerging. What we do know is this attack on children and the adults who tried to protect them took place on Hart Street in Southport, at this yoga and dance space called Hart Space, located in a largely residential street less than a 5-minute drive from the centre of town, a place of safety and fun for children and parents. This morning was hosting a Taylor Swift-themed dance and yoga class for 6 to 11-year-olds at the time the attack took place. The class began at 10 a.m. and was due to last 2 hours. It's not known precisely when the attack began, but witnesses described hearing the sound of screams and seeing children running from the venue. At 11:47 a.m., the Northwest Ambulance Service responded to a call at Hart Street with reports of multiple stabbings. Soon after that, parents due to pick up their children arrived to face a scene they would have feared more than any other. In these images, taken from the house in front of the Hart Space, paramedics desperately worked to save the lives of children and 2 adults on the street. A 17-year-old boy was arrested at the scene on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, and is being interviewed by police.
And it felt like, especially as just a citizen wandering through London, for the last couple of years, knife crime has been at the abundance. We keep hearing about it, it keeps happening. These recent stabbings is what propelled me to take a look into some data so I can at least find out if I'm tripping or not. But it feels like a social media problem because everyone knows about everything, everything is reported, everything is shared, and we have apps that give us a moment's notice to world news. So I decided to go online and actually research and do some studying. And I came across a study by the ONS, or the Office of National Statistics. And this study takes a survey every year starting from March, from England and Wales, I think, except Manchester. I don't think the Manchester police report anything. And the main reason to do that was just for my self-awareness so I could clarify the trend of knife crime. And I was surprised to see, to be honest, that overall homicides have been on a downward trend for the last 20 years. It hasn't really shifted that much from last year. We're pretty much the same amount of homicides. But this is where the knife crime aspect comes in. And I know some of you have already made the connection, but crimes involving knives have gone up a lot. Well, a lot is a bit of an understatement, but it's definitely on an uptick, but the trend is there. Knife crime in general is up 4%, but robberies including knives is up by 13%. Compared to just last year. And I want you guys to pay attention to this spot right here, this dip. Now this is March 2020. This is 6 days before we head into lockdown in England or in London. And we spent 6 months. Remember, we got released in, I don't want to make it seem like a jail sentence, but September is when lockdown ended. And that's what it took to not only stop an upwards trend of knife crime, but for us to see the least amount of knife crime attempted and successfully carried out in the last 3 years. And now we've gotten out of lockdown, and as the years start to pile on, because it's been almost 4 years now, knife crime is just slowly going back up again. So why is that? Let's talk. Now, when it comes to music and social media having negative effects on children, this is a conversation that's been had for the last probably 30 years. Well, not for social media, but for music. And obviously when it comes to recent history with the lockdown, it makes sense that a bunch of the people taking part in knife crimes before would just become repeat offenders, right? It kind of makes a bit of sense. But the bad part about this is the new kids that are getting introduced to this lifestyle. Because it's fun to do it in your teens, it's cool. When you're in your 20s, it's cool. But once you're in your 30s, it's kind of trash. Like, you 30 and you just robbing niggas, like, you look kind of weird, no? I ain't gonna lie. And when it comes to the music, I think music nowadays tends to glorify this kind of lifestyle because people always want to have a struggle story. Like, we mock it, we see it on TikTok. Everyone wants to come from the bottom. Everyone wants to have, not have anything in life. Everyone wants to be struggling. This is just the trend people want now. This concept is nothing new. This is something we've been seeing from the 80s and the 90s music where, gangster rap, this whole type of thing. But it's not the same. And let me explain what I mean. Back in the 80s and the 90s, people were rapping about their lifestyle, but they weren't glorifying it. They were just saying what was happening. All it takes takes is interviews from the biggest rappers, or even just listening to music in general, not just listening to one or two songs. It's clear that they're talking about the life they live, the life people experience in the hood, in the ghetto, the stuff you have to do, and how they don't want that for their people anymore. They want to rise up. You could listen to anyone, if it goes to NWA, Public Enemy, Tupac. And I also want to give a shout out to DMX, Nas, artists like that who have come out and said in interviews that they're the voice of the streets. They rap about what life is like on the street. Just go watch some interviews, man. Nowadays, the entire message is removed. All it is, fuck the future generation. I'm doing this, I'm selling drugs. I'm out here killing people. The message looks the same because they're talking about the same stuff, but the outcome is not the same. The outcomes is way worse. And that's because the intention behind the message. People are trying to glorify this type of rap, this type of message, because it sells more. Whereas back in the 80s and 90s, people wanted to bring this message out to try and cause change, to try and help future generations and help their communities have a voice for the voiceless, etc., etc. And a perfect example of this is King Von. I mean, King Von has so many great messages in terms of his outlook on life, how he's had to live, what's life like in the ghetto, but he's a serial killer rapping about his killings, and people glorify him and meat ride him. Like, let's be honest, people meat ride everyone from O Block, and it's not because they're not bad artists. I understand that they're good at rapping and all that stuff, but what's the message behind it? There isn't one. It's just celebrating mass murders, celebrating serial killers. And obviously King Von's an American artist, and I'm trying to talk about England with knife crime, but it's this type of persona on social media that people glorify. Like, King Von is known here. People know who King Von is here. Ask anyone my age about King Von, they'll probably know who he is. And I don't really know many drill artists and all this stuff because I don't listen to them. I understand why people rap the way they rap, but it's not for me. And unfortunately, the portrayal online is that if you don't live like this, you ain't a real nigga. And you can hate me all you want, but that's just the root. That's the truth of the matter. Some people just want the label. They don't want to be portrayed as weak, as fake, as not a real nigga, all this type of shit. So they go online or they go in real life and they do this type of shit for ratings. And it'd be easy for me to point the finger and talk about this and talk about insecurities and talk about, the child is nothing better. I'm not here trying to disrespect anyone or insult anyone. But one thing I will say is that a child's mind is easily susceptible to these type of things. If you don't have strong roots at home, like if you don't have strong parents, discipline, it's easy for a developing child's brain to become enamored with things like this. And if the person in question isn't taught how to have a good moral standpoint, it's just going to lead to things like this even more. And now for my extreme hypothetical, but it probably is right, to be honest, and that is desperation. I worked in retail before the pandemic, during and after. And one thing I've seen is the complete transformation of my type of job line. Jobs where you don't need a degree. I forget the name of, there's a certain job title for it, but jobs where you don't really need any experience, you can just grab and do. But I've seen firsthand the change in supermarkets, change in prices, changes in job description, everything has completely been changed. I've seen people get fired, targeted. I know because I'm one of them. I've seen prices double, triple sometimes in 1 year, which is crazy. I've seen everything get digitalized. And of course the old people have a problem with it now, but give it 20 years when all the old people die off. I'm telling you, they're just waiting until this old generation goes, and then everything is going to be completely digital, because at that point everyone would have lived through digital age. They're making digital tickets, getting rid of tills just for self-scan machines, we're replacing security with CCTV. I'm telling you, this shit is fucked. And if I'm being honest, it makes me think about the bottom of the barrel jobs for every industry. I hate obviously demeaning people saying, oh, your job's bottom of the barrel, but I work those jobs too. I know it's bottom of the barrel. But is it that much of a reach to think that people who were already struggling before the lockdown or during the lockdown now have to come back out into the open world? Would I be surprised if they potentially turn to crime, or their kids potentially turn to crime because they can't afford anything anymore? Is it that much of a reach? Like, I know this is a knife crime, but I'm sure you've seen it on TikTok. There's a huge coupon scam going on for Sainsbury's right now. And as someone who had to work in Sainsbury's, I had to stop coupon scams. That's something I did. And of course, a bunch of the kids went and got the coupon scam just so they can get, sweets and donuts and all this bullshit. But you don't think some of those people really tried to scam shit because they needed it? I see so many people, especially in this country, prioritize luxury items over necessities. And it gets to a point where we depend on such luxuries. And now that it's harder than ever for the average person to survive, financially, people might just turn to knife crime or just crime in general to help put some extra luxury stuff on the table, because why not? I've seen people pull knives on security guards because they were stealing alcohol and security caught them. Like, this is stuff I've witnessed. I've seen people square up to fight over donuts. I'm being so serious. You think I'm lying? I see this shit. I worked in the stores. I see this shit. And part of me can empathize with that. Like, if you're used to a certain kind of life and now suddenly everything's just marked up, you can't afford things like you used to. You have to work more than you used to. Sometimes you just want to break. I understand it. It's peak, but I understand. And there's so many other things I can mention, you know, like trauma, self-defense, all that type of jazz. But if I'm being honest, the biggest problem for me is that I don't know a solution. I'd love to be a pretentious son of a bitch and just get on the mic and act like I have the answers to everything. I really don't. I mean, I'm never going to act like I know what I'm talking about all the time. When it comes to this stuff, I try and stay away because, I mean, I'm not about this life. I'm not about knives. I'm not about that type of shit. Never have been, never will be. The only time we've ever seen a mass solution work is in, like, remember El Salvador? President came in and just wiped the whole shit clean. That's not gonna work here. Like, this is a big country. We're multicultural, diverse. How are you gonna determine if people are criminals here? It's easier in El Salvador because it's a smaller country, and all it takes is an officer to get one case wrong and social media gonna light that nigga up in flames. He gonna be buried under the jail. Honestly, when it comes to a big country like England, I don't know how knife crime gets solved, because all the moral answers aren't gonna happen because that's up to the higher ups, and the higher ups just care about money. So this is peak. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Let's Talk. It's kind of a long one, but we're talking, man. We're vibing. If you guys like this kind of content, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And if you have any ideas on what you want me to talk about next, leave it in the comment section. That's it, man. Peace.
I'm not a savior nor a saint. Told 30s and sticks with an open case. I try to behave when I know I can't. So purpose of this is to motivate. What's the ticket? Shit we can negotiate. Take a toke of the law while I pour the drink.